time grief we go. Gotta learn to let it go. Once asleep, now awake, feeling every breath you take.
Welcome to Wake the F Up podcast, hosted by Alix and David Long, where we talk about living consciously and helping people uncover their essential selves so that they can stop sleepwalking through life. Our goal is to create a safe space where our guests can share how they've decided to wake the F up and become mindfulness experts through their own emotional healing journey. Welcome to Wake the F Up podcast. I'm your host, Alix Long, along with my co-host and my husband, David Long. And our guest today is Michael Hernandez, a Marine veteran turned firefighter paramedic, who now works as a certified trauma-informed yoga instructor, an Oxygen Advantage certified breath coach, and a Wim Hof instructor. We're so excited to share Michael's incredible journey with our listeners today and hear about the work he's doing helping veterans and first responders overcome their challenges through his unique blend of alternative therapies and holistic approaches to wellness. Welcome, Michael. We're so excited to have you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Love being
We are
here.
so
I'm so
thrilled. You
excited
are
to
our
talk to you
first
guys.
male guest, as we talked about just before the show started, which is a big one for David. He is really passionate, as am I, about holding ourselves responsible as women to be able to create safe spaces for men to be vulnerable is the way I think that real change will happen in our relationships. And so, and a veteran, so we both have trauma backgrounds in both healing and personal experience. So talk to our listeners a little bit about your background. Tell us about how you got to be where you are today. I mean,
Whew, man, that is lengthy, and I will try to make it as brief as possible. So I guess I can take this all the way back to my childhood. I had a lot of very traumatic past. Both my parents weren't very versed, and I've gone through that in my whole life, right? Beaten by my dad, kind of narcissistic abuse by my mother, and moving forward into my life, and made me a very effective Marine, right? So made a very carrying that trauma into combat from 2008 to 2000 or 2008. I carried that kind of ability to compartmentalize very well, to use that as an effective space to be an effective, Marine in combat. So from that, I tried to get out, and I got medically discharged, and I went to college and did college for a little bit. Became a firefighter paramedic. I didn't want to use the gun anymore. I didn't want to be like. I don't want to be a force in that way. I wanted to be more. How can I impact my community in a way if I can help them? And I thought I loved medicine, so let's go into that. So I went into a paramedic firefighter, and I figured out the streets of the United States are just as bad as the streets of most third world countries, in a way of that we've thought out. Mental health is horrible out here in the streets of the United States, and found that I couldn't help the way I thought I could help, and it only became worse. Through all that, I also, through didn't handle my own stress very well, as I threw it into. Um, I became a national recognized power lifter, went into pro level strongman. Did all that, and that was just burying all my trauma. I just kept burying it, and sooner or later that bottle popped into a point where I just, a lot of things happened with family, my kids, and with me. I had a very serious altercation in a hospital where I hurt a patient, not just protecting myself and a fellow nurse, and I decided that something needed to change. Like, there's something going on with me, and I knew there was for a very long time, and I decided to, seek some help, and I did. I went through. I was all through all that. I was also going through therapy, and I tell people, if talk therapy fixed things, we would have had problems fixed a long time ago. We need more than just talk therapy. So I did a nice little trek, Wim Hof trek, and then from there I turned into a yoga teacher. Been a yoga teacher for 5+ years now, a trauma informed yoga teacher. My yoga mom, Annie Okerlund, and Kelly Watson they're like the um, mentors that I needed in my life, and guided me to a different position, how to, use mindfulness and the Wim Hof stuff, resilience, and use some of the breath work from the military. And when I got through yogic breathing and my now business partner and breath mentor, Keith Kemp, um, helping, we went through Oxygen Advantage together, but also he's went through a totally different breath journey in his own, that he's a damn wizard with breath, and I wish a lot of men can experience. And then certainly come to today, through my life, and I think I've gained the PhD of trauma that we're saying, right? It's the hard knocks of life that I've gained knowledge through which I can help people. I've done extensive work to myself, and as we talked before the show started, I still do work to myself on a regular. I tell a lot of my clients and a lot of the guys that come through our retreats and workshops that there's four things in life that we have to understand that's going to be a constant in our life. One is pain and suffering is inevitable in our lives, and we have to come to have some acceptance of that. And not so much, I like to say resilience. I love resilience, but it's almost anti-fragility, right? I want to become somewhat anti-fragile. And two, the unknown and uncertainty, which causes that fear and anxiety in us moving forward. I tell our guys, it's like, we have no clue what the hell's going to happen in the future. Having some acceptance of that brings us into the present moment. And I can't tell you how much the uncertainty and the unknown is big for a lot of people. We want to seem to know what's going to happen in the future, and we can plan for the future. But I'm going to tell you what, being in the military, being a firefighter, there's it's pretty much, I've never had a plan that's come exactly to how I planned it, because we can't know the future. It's impossible. So being in the present moment as much as possible is the best possible outcome, and just being present with your surroundings, yourself, your family, everything. Number three, constant work. We got to start with our mind, body, spirit. I think the body first, out of order with everything, but the mind and the spirit are so important as well. And that work is constant. It doesn't stop. And I like to think that's a superpower in a way, meaning like, if, let's say, you know, we get really comfortable, and I with a lot of us that are children of trauma, like, would say like, man, my life is really good. I wonder when that anvil is going to come, and usually it comes pretty swift. And when that anvil comes, how are we prepared to handle it? Are we going to be reactive, or are we going to be responsive? And that's a really big thing that I try to help men go through. And then number four, I try to tell everybody is fuck around and find out. What's the worst that can happen? Like, let's take some good calculated risks and have fun with life. What's what we're here for? We're here to have experiences. We're not here to, you know, like risk not do anything, not go after our dreams. I think I just watched that Dave Chappelle recent comedy special, and he goes, I'm
Yeah.
tired of doing other people's dreams. I want to do my own dreams. And I think a lot of us are working for other people's dreams, and are not like actually searching our own dreams and living our own lives.
No.
So that's a long spiel,
It
but
wasn't
I
long
hope
at all.
that gave
That
you a
was
little bit
great.
of insight.
A lot of what you said resonates, probably not just with men, but particularly for me. That is a lot. I mean, living other people's lives for whatever reason. I don't know why we do that, but we do. We do. I mean,
Yeah,
I was for sure doing that,
I
100%.
I honestly think I honestly think it's because it's what society does for us, right? It's like I think, I really feel that we're in this big awakening. Since your podcast calls Awaken, right? We're on the precipice. We're on the precipice for this big awakening, and we're if you look at history, we're these our history as the human race. We work in these
Yeah.
250-year trends, right? And the Mongols, the Romans, the Vikings, we all hit these 250 to 300-year trends where things start to shift in our as human beings. And I think even in the U.S., as a very young country as we are, we're about to hit this shift in where we're at, and you can kind of tell by, I don't really watch the news, but you don't need to watch much to be like, something's fucking wild going on here. Like, people are starting to like wake up, and like, I don't, especially after the COVID era, I was like, people are starting like, I don't have to
Right.
work
Yeah.
from a building. I can work from home. I can, and my work hours don't have to be 8. I can get all my work done if I'm not disturbed between 2 to 3 hours,
Right.
and start living my life. Like, a lot of people are going to these buildings and they're working for somebody else's dream, not theirs. And I find that extremely frustrating. But it's all and honestly, as human beings, we're searching for autonomy. We're searching for, especially men. I mean, and women too. But I feel like as we talk about this shift in male, masculine, feminine energy. I think I feel in this time where men are in this big feminine energy where we're just more passive, and women are in this more masculine energy, and and it it's really offset. And like, not that there's a problem with that, there's a lot of different problems with that, but men are not being men. And I'm like, where the fuck is men out here right now? And you have these big conversation with what the hell alpha males are. I was like, motherfucker, you guys don't know what the hell alpha male is. I've seen guys, you know, selfless, take their, like, try to, that are heroes out there. And I want everybody to be a hero. It means protector, but I the whole alpha male conversation is bullshit. Like, we're the fucking masculine men out here right now. Like, we're the men that are taking ownership of their lives, taking responsibility, not blaming other people, taking ownership for what they believe is right and wrong, right? Like, where are these men out here? And I just think it's society has seriously really built this construct of, and if women are falling suit to it too. I mean, it's kind of wild to watch, to be honest. I mean,
Well, I
give your
love
guys'
what you
input
just
on that. I
said.
just really kind of
I
curious.
think the disconnect maybe is between all of us finding our truth and our voice, at least in my perspective. So I think for women, it's actually,
Mhm.
David said this crazy thing last night. It's like really knocked me over a little bit. He was like, I don't think women can be free until they become more embodied. And what he meant was, until inside of ourselves we know what we need to be free, meaning we sexually can say what we need, we physically don't have a man's expectations of who we're supposed to be in our heads guiding us on decision making, we can't be equal men. And I think the same goes for men emotionally.
sure.
Like, I hate that we call emotionality not being a man or manning. I love that podcast, Man Up. It's really good. It's like why we are allowed to have the feminine energy and masculine energy, both parties. And I think we're in the in between of that, where we're just trying to get there, but we don't know how.
Well, I think redefining what masculinity means has been a long time coming.
Well, right.
And I don't know. And I think the thing you said about history, I've thought a lot about that. Because when I talk to my peers, I'm 49. When I talk to men in the 35 to 55 range, the experience at home is freakily similar. I mean, so many either open physical abuse or at minimum emotional abuse, and just a ton of abusive stuff going on in the homes of the generation that survived World War II. And I can't help but think that there was just so much unhealed trauma in that generation, and then they had us, and uh,
Well, yeah. What's this interesting for me? I've been on this past year. I've been on this idea quest, right? And it's not so uncommon, right? The thing I'm going to bring to your attention, it's been floating in my head for the past year and a half to 2 years, is where do we have, and even this works for women as well. This goes for women as well. Is where is the rite of passage
yeah,
to that which a
yeah.
man becomes a man and a woman becomes a woman, right? We don't have that. We don't have that, and I'm going to break this down into something a little bit more grandiose. Um, so we live in these cities, and we can't be more disconnected than we are, right? If you go, my girlfriend Natalie is from a small town in Ohio, and when you go there, the neighbors help the neighbors. There's small tribes in their communities, and these communities, although we know that small towns are more prevalent, you see drug abuse and stuff like that, but that's happening in big cities. It's just so big here. You don't. It's not really the current populace doesn't really like. Oh, look, that's the drug section. It's like it's we in us in big cities. We're so disconnected. It's 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 very prevalent if you just walk around. You can go by, just walk in a mall or walk in a park and say, "Hey, hello, how are you doing?" People
Yeah.
will walk with their eyes down and they don't even look at you. And it's such a weird thing. And I don't know if it's coming back to the rite of passage. Is like we have gotten away from being tribal beings, and we need to be tribal beings. We need. That's where I think there's a book called Tribe by Sebastian Unger, and he talks about tribal the tribe, and how when men went off to war, that women are the ones who handled everything. They're the ones who kept the tribe together. They're the ones that ran everything. They're the ones that did all the stuff. And then men, when they came back, they came back to the open arms of the woman. Come back to us. We will nurture you. We will give you love, and then we'll put you back to work. Like, go hunt, go gather, right? We we don't have this rite of passage anymore. I read about a tribe in the rainforest where they raise their kids in a way where they teach them everything they know how to survive in the jungle. And then when they come to of age, they send the kids out. They said, "Hey, I want you to walk in this direction for 3 months and don't come back. The jungle will let you know when you come back." Right? The jungle will tell you, "Hey, you've learned all you've learned. You can go back to your tribe." And if you find your way back to your tribe, you've become a man or a woman. It's like we don't have that. We're lost in the direction to which we are being humans. We're lost to what being a man is. A lot of the men that I help now, one of the biggest questions I ask them, and this goes from age ranges of 20 all the way to 70 years old. And this is across the line the same answer most of them guys. This is over 300 plus men. I go, when do you think you became a man? And the majority answer goes,
What's
I
your
think I'm still
answer?
becoming a man. How
That's a really hard question.
It's a hard question.
Like, I don't think people have answer for that. I mean, if someone said,
Yeah,
when did you become a
right?
woman? I might say,
I mean, what
and this is not a good answer.
exactly?
This is a personal answer. It's not a good answer because not all women are mothers, but I feel like I became a woman when I became a mother, because I think that's maybe what I've been taught is the quality of being a woman.
For me, it depends on where I am. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Which is that's
How interesting is that? How interesting is that? It's like, and I don't think you would think you'd ask most men, like, especially me, like, I went to war. Like, does that make me a man? I'm
babies.
like, no, because we were fucking kids with guns and freaking explosives. No, we were freaking kids. I think over time I've come up with that answer, and I think it's worked well for women too. And I can't speak for women, and I refuse to, because you guys are a totally different species than us. Is that when you take personal responsibility for everything you have in your life, and you take ownership, and you stand in that, you stand in all that shit that you grew up in, all that fucking turmoil, and you've turned your life around on your own, and you can stand tall and say, "Hey, man, I've been through a lot of shit, but it's made me who I am today." I think, and I believe, and I feel that's what's made you a man. And that's just my point of view. But as for a woman, I think it's the same way. Like, I feel like a lot of women haven't
No,
really stepped into
it's
that divine
scary.
feminine energy. Like, and I think when women find that, when women find that, I think that's when they
I think you're
become a
right. And I
full
think a lot of
expression of
times we
whatever
go
it
with
is woman
whatever
is.
expression of a woman is that we were raised with. And I think men the same. And I think until we separate ourselves and heal ourselves, love ourselves enough, I don't think we can get out of these. We're half who we are and we're half who we think we're supposed to be. And it's always dichotomous like that.
Yeah, I was just thinking it really depends on where I am. I mean, if I'm with my parents, then the answer is never. I mean,
If you were to take that, if you were to take that 16-year-old girl, 16-year-old boy, and put them out in the street, could they like act as responsible adults? Probably fucking not. I'm gonna tell you. Like, and then people would say, like, even like for a woman that that moment they had their first period,
Yeah,
that's like, you're
definitely.
now
I
a
don't think
woman.
that's
I'm
a
like,
moment that makes you a woman.
really?
You're scared, young.
I
Yeah,
don't think
I mean,
so.
I think you make a great
No.
point, and that's
Yeah.
that until you start doing for yourself and making your own. And I mean, for me, I was very old, on 46, really, before I really asked myself what I wanted. You know, what I wanted, what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived 46 years. I never asked those questions. So I would actually argue that if that, with that definition of, becoming an adult or becoming a man, it was pretty late. Pretty late. I mean, I was just sailing through
Yeah.
life,
And it's
not really making very many decisions at all, right? And certainly never telling anybody what I wanted.
yeah.
But more importantly, I never really asked myself what I wanted. We've talked about this before, but when we first got together,
It was a
Yeah.
little
Alex,
surprising,
yeah,
actually.
Alex would ask me, "Well, what do you want? What do you want?" And I was like, "Fuck, no one, no one's ever asked me what I want."
But isn't it crazy? Like, I've witnessed this in front of Manali's family's beautiful, and they're young from a small town. But I witnessed this in front of family, the transition to which the
Yeah,
the parents almost become the children again, right? You almost, even the grandparents. You see that, not the, it's not, I don't like to call it the degradation, but almost you can see where the rise comes in, and where, like, the children have to become the more of the adult in the situation, and I'm just witnessing and observing. And I think that's what you're feeling too, is like, you're in a way, you're just sitting there and you're just like, they're expecting a version of you,
yeah. In
yet
fact,
they're
I
also
was walking down a
reverting
hall of
back into their
hospital once,
childhood
and
in
my
some model.
dad's doctor, who I've never talked to about my dad ever, like stopped me and gave me this run. This happened several years ago. Gave me this rundown of my dad's health, and I was like, I was completely taken aback, dumbstruck. Really, I was like, why are you telling me this? What, he's a grown adult who's perfectly, with it mentally. And it just dawned on me that he was telling me because he thought that I should know, because I was going to become the parent, like you said, that
The caregiver.
I was going to be his caregiver, which I've never. I
Yeah.
mean, he's very independent and full of energy and takes care of himself. But there is a point where that's your role, that's your job, and
It's very cyclical like that, Like, I think we're all going through that, and the older you get, the more you can see your parents as less ad I wouldn't say they're not adults, but it feels less adult because of all the woundedness, and I think our generation is really looking at our woundedness and trying to sift through it and normalize some of the traumas that have happened in our homes,
oh,
and
I think that's super challenging
yeah,
as we are learning and growing and talking about our trauma of childhood trauma. At least in my case, they're the same. They're not doing anything different. They're perfectly happy
Yeah.
where they are, and they may tell you, well, this is the reason we did what we did, and you know what I mean. They may try to explain it, but that's it. I mean, um, there's no like catharsis of what happened. You know what I mean? Which is really hard, because then you're just sitting in it. You're just you're aware. No, no one else
Yeah.
is aware.
Great, this is a great, yeah, this is a great segue into what the wonderful word that's being used, and it's being kind of abused, but
Yeah,
vulnerability is a great word, right? We're in that age of vulnerability right now. It's and I love it. I love the fact I've been writing poetry. I'm gonna get to your point. I'm gonna I've been writing poetry since I was
I
16,
love that.
sure.
it's definitely changed over time, right? It's changed. It went from angry, abused teenager to, I'm in this lovely relationship with this woman right now, and it's now, she's my muse. It's nothing but love.
Yeah,
It's like all my poetry is fucking love, and it's fucking wild. But it's also a vulnerability. Like, today was, I wrote a poem today too. But
yeah,
your witnessing of your
for
dad's
sure. Yep.
vulnerability was a shock
Right.
to you, right? And it was like, oh shit, I have to be this
Right.
responsible adult for this other adult. And how crazy is that? I think that's why you felt the way you felt. It's
Yeah.
like, man, this motherfucker
Never
took care of
displayed any
himself his
vulnerability
whole
at
life,
all, ever.
as far as
Never.
I knew.
Always,
You know?
always was strong.
Yeah.
Always was
It's such a
rigid. Always was disciplined. Would never let that down.
But then you also have parents who always allow their children to take care of them.
Yeah.
I think there could be an alternate swing. Like some parents are never adult, where
Right.
Yeah.
you care for
It's
them.
sliding
You are the
scale for
adult from a
sure.
young age on, and that can be a struggle too.
But there's yeah. But that
Yeah.
rigidity that
That's
your
right.
dad has is a
For sure.
weakness.
For
It's
sure.
a freaking big weakness. It's a huge weakness. And the same because now what is he gonna do when he's incapacitated? He doesn't have he doesn't have the ability to do this. This is his this is interesting and I've already witnessed this before. This is his moment to actually fall into his manhood, which is wild because you don't think your dad is not being a man because you think of this as a strong character, but now you see him in his weakest moments. And this is funny because I witnessed Thanksgiving. Natalie's dad got a knee replaced, and I had this moment with him, and he was sitting there, and he's in pain, and he has this ice machine on his leg, and he's hooking it back up, and I go, I go to help him, and he said, no, I got it. I was like, I know you got it. It's okay though, because I'm here and I want to help you, and it's okay to feel this way. I've sat in a hospital for 6 months to a year at Walter Reed, and I was completely incapacitated. I was completely vulnerable. Having a nurse wipe your ass at the age of 20 some years old is not funny, not the greatest fucking feeling in the world. But this moment with her dad, I'm just saying, hey, look, I know that you feeling vulnerable is not a great feeling, and the people around you right now, they want to help you because they love you. And this is an opportunity to accept that care and that love and just sit back and enjoy it. And but
For sure.
that vulnerability too, it takes courage to be that vulnerable in front of the face of the people that you
What
were
do you
never
think,
vulnerable
Michael, it takes for a man to be vulnerable? Like if our listeners are out there and they're obviously they have feelings, there's not a man in the world that's not feeling. It's just it's the ability to express it in different ways. So how do you suggest people start vulnerability in their life as a man?
Man, I especially when it comes to friends and relationships, right? I can't, and I think this has been voiced so many years. That one of the things that Natalie and I talked about when we first got together is we refuse not to have a good communicative relationship ever. There's nothing I do not talk about with that woman. I don't care what any fucking therapist says. That woman knows the deepest corners of my freaking recesses, and she knows all of them. Tuesday, I came home out all day. Her and I did an MDMA New Year's. Her and we went to a place. We did MDMA together, and we had an experience. And that the residuals, usually MDMA is it has a lot of residuals in the back end. If you've never done it before. And Tuesday I was a hot fucking mess. I was crying, and a lot of things were coming out of me. And she just sat there. She sat there. She fucking listened. She helped me understand things because she sees me for who I am. She meets me where I'm at. She doesn't want to fix me. That's not her job to. Her job is to listen and help me and mirror, right? To mirror what I'm saying so that way I'm hearing it correctly and so that I can make a calculated decision on how I go from here and where do I go. I think for a lot of people out there, it's really hard to find trustworthy, loyal people who just want to listen, have the eagerness to just want to help you and have some compassion and care for who you are as a person. I think that's what it takes to be vulnerable in front of somebody. This is what I used to do when I was single. When I was this is gonna be funny. when I was single, I used to go to bars and then unload all of my life to one
Oh my
woman or
God, I
another
love
guy, and then just
that
walk
for
the
you.
fuck out because I'd feel so much better.
It's so much cheaper than therapy too.
Yeah, I wouldn't drink. Oh man, it was one of the greatest tools I've ever used in my entire life. I would go random places, and if somebody wanted to start conversation, just and they asked me about
Yeah.
my life, I would give them the whole lock, stock, and barrel,
I
and they would
Yes.
sit there with this gaze in front of their face, like, "Oh,
love
nice
it.
to meet you, but I'm gonna go to the
Yeah,
bathroom. I just
I used
hire
to do
somebody."
that. I did that a lot after Betsy died. People would ask
And
you,
it
How
was,
are you?
when people ask you, how are you? They're expecting you to say, fine. I'm fine. How are you? But then when you're not fine and you're okay telling them you're not fine,
yeah,
and you just go into it, they're like,
You see them kind of looking for the exit. They're like, how do I get out of
yeah.
this
yeah,
conversation?
you did ask me if I was fine. So, right.
That's right.
But I'm never gonna
That's
see this
so
person again.
powerful.
I'm never gonna see this person again because I don't go out to bars. I don't party. I was like, I'm never gonna
That's
see you
That's
again.
hilarious.
awesome.
I hope you enjoy
What?
everything that I gave you. See you later. But coming back to the vulnerability part, I think what you said is like, I think I have like 8 people in my life now. Thank God. I used to only have one. I have 8 now because I've opened my life to. I
Yeah.
had to open my life to other people because it takes a tribe to get through this life. I had to open up my mind and my body to like allow myself to open up more. And I sat in a sauna for 2 years, and I used it as a stage to open up my entire life to 12 people at a time for like 3 hours every Friday. And I did this, and I for 2 to 2.5 years, along my workshops and all this stuff, and it's just like, man, it gave me the bandwidth to like start trusting more people and like bringing them into my life. And it's very hard because a lot of people out there, it was between dating websites and going out,
Ooh,
Yeah.
dating
you
websites are
can't
rough.
trust. You feel like you
Well,
can't
you
trust
certainly can't be
anybody.
vulnerable. I mean,
They're rough.
It's
that would be right.
oh man, no, there's not like you want a healthy space. And honestly, if I were to tell you the one thing Keith and I do in our workshops and in our our workshops and our retreats, what we do best, and it's all that Keith and I do.
Yeah.
We're
That's
space
huge.
holders. That is all we do. Outside me being a yoga teacher and Keith being a breath worker, we are just space holders. We create a space so safe by one. We start every workshop saying, one, guys, hey, look, I've been through a lot of shit in my life. I have some insight. But I will tell you, I'm not a fucking guru. I don't I don't know what the fuck is going on in this fucking world. I've done enough psychedelics in my life to know that the
Oh,
world is way bigger than we can fucking
this
ever
one
dream
too.
of. To like tell you like
No,
to help you understand, like we don't know shit. Like the
for
more
sure.
I
That's
seem to
actually so
fucking
true.
learn, the more less I know, right? And that's where so when I start that way and then I tell my story and Keith tells his story, I can't tell you how many guys just pop off like it's a fucking like popcorn machine, right? Like they're just like they just feel
Vulnerability in that way is
immediately
so
like, oh my
special when you
God.
can create. I mean, I do
Like
retreats as well, and
these guys just
one of the first ones of the new company, we had such a brave person that was in our first retreat, and she, we started like how we're gonna set the tone for a safe space for vulnerability, and we had this participant that was like, I'm a recovering heroin addict. I mean, she said it in like 3 seconds. You would never have guessed this was like, a mom. She looked like you wouldn't have guessed it. Like, and that's just set the tone for this one retreat. Everybody was like talking about sexual abuse, and that's how it went. It was like telling our stories, and that's really what this company is about. Is like, I by no means am a psychiatrist. I've been through a shit ton of therapy, a lot of trauma work. I'm doing educational things towards nervous system and trauma work all the time, but experiential learning is really what I think is crucial. And I think it's creating a community where people can feel safe enough to experience each other's stories.
You can't, and this comes up all the time for us. They always ask me, like, well, not always, but some women ask me, like, how do I get my husband to, open up, tell me how he feels, tell me what he thinks, why is he angry all the time, all that kind of stuff. And it goes back to that. Like, you need to provide him a safe space where he where he can feel vulnerable. If he thinks, like I thought forever, my first relationship, if he thinks that if he tells you how he really feels that you're not going to love him, then he's just not going to tell you how he feels. You know what I mean? And it seems that simple,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, the
Acceptance.
other person in the party also brings their own shit to the equation, and so that can be kind of challenging.
It's very, it is, but I think when you start a relationship, and this is completely by experience, by the way, guys. When I started my current relationship, both of us
Right,
had an
us too.
exorbitant amount of fucking trauma.
Right,
And
like normalize it. If you hide
but
it,
we
that's the
discussed it.
problem.
Right.
And well, yeah. But there's how I can probably speak to what you guys have been through as well, is that um because both of you have spoken on that, the trajectory of your
Yeah.
healing path
Well,
went from like this to like this, right? You guys started healing at a lot faster rate because you were more open to have discussions about what the fuck is
There's no
going
doubt
on in your
about it.
head, how
No
you
doubt about
want
it.
there's no
to,
doubt about it. And I actually love what you're saying. So, because
and
one of
to
your questions that we like had
yeah,
some
it
questions preset to say that you're interested in talking about was, how can we be better partners as men? And I was thinking to myself, how can we be better partners as women? And that was a question I wanted to ask you both, which we're already saying it, which is if you were working on your healing
yeah.
individually but together, and the together part is just being communicative about it and providing safety for us to be able to say, like, hey, my
Mhm.
dad was a narcissist. I literally feel never good enough, and when we do this and this, it makes me feel A, B, and C. And then David repeating, like, what I heard you say was, this and this. Like, I'm so sorry that you went through that, right? Like, I hear
Yeah.
you. It's
Mirroring,
so
right?
powerful. So, for you, what is important for Natalie
Yeah,
to give you in order for you to feel seen, safe, and supported, and wanting to connect?
it's great that you asked that question because we were talking about that last night. um, man, it's what a gift it is to tell someone what you're going through, and her immediate response is one to mirror, like, hey, this is what I'm hearing, is this right? And to be like, holy shit,
Right.
we didn't deserve that, you didn't deserve that, that wasn't your fault. Also, here's a fucking hug for 5 seconds, and let's talk about more, let's open this up to a more discussion, right? I think both parties for sure have to be doing the work before you enter something into something, and both of you have to be in a place that you feel safe with each other to have those open conversations. Like, it can't be like, hey, let's fix this,
Right.
let's fix this rapidly. I don't want to deal with your fucking emotions. That's an instant shutdown. I don't
Right.
want to, that's going to shut me down immediately. I don't want to fucking talk to you. um and I think it's a lot of this happening, like you hear, I like to go through my Instagram and read, like, where some women or some men, they talk about their relationship. Is like, why is my husband, or why is my man so fucking
Right.
emotional? It's
So
like,
that'll rev me up because
he
I'm
can't
like,
have
that's so
emotions.
unfair.
Are, are,
Right. We're meant to connect and
we
feel.
are emotional beings, for Christ's sake. Like, we're spiritual, emotional beings, and like, you're telling me I can't feel? I was like, okay. Now you wonder why, like, sex out here is so violent, and like
Mm-hmm.
people are just not having the sex that they want to have.
Do you,
And men are
question
just
on the
searching
male
for
side, do you
connectedness,
guys feel
hands
that,
down.
okay, so this is it's not this may be a complicated question and may have a few layers for both of you, but women often wonder how much is sexuality
Yeah.
required in order for you to be happy. And I think there's always this, like, in the past, a question about, like, is sexual satisfaction or being met where you would need to be met sexually as important as being met where you need to be met emotionally? Is that question clear?
So that's a super complicated topic. I mean, first of all, yeah,
I know.
yeah,
Well, it's a
yeah,
good topic because
Oh
I think
man,
women are
I would
afraid
love to talk
that
about
if
that.
we don't have enough sex,
Oh
then
yeah.
you guys won't, there's always these voices like, oh, if you don't have sex with your man, someone else will. These voices people say to you.
Well, actually, I mean, if we tore that down a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
Well,
as
there's
offensive
some
as
truth.
that, yeah,
There's
as
some truth
offensive
in
as
that.
that statement is, the truth is, like, if you're in a relationship and there's no intimacy, yeah, I mean, that's gonna be a problem, right? But
yeah, yeah. There needs to be intimacy, but that there also, I think, so it's funny because
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of like the stuff that
Mm-hmm.
my girlfriend and I go through, right? So she has a lot of sexual trauma. I have sexual trauma in my background too. So it comes down to this question
Mm.
for men: what animal are you feeding? Meaning, are you feeding the
yeah,
desire pleasure
That's
animal?
interesting.
Are you feeding the
yeah,
connectedness cosmic animal? Right? Are you feeding this animal that's
right,
just like,
right,
But
hey, I'm gonna get my
when men
nut,
are
and then you're just going
masturbating on
after
the
a dopamine hit.
regular,
That's all
I'm
you're
sorry, I'm
hitting.
going into
You're
heavy
hitting
now,
dopamine. It's no
but
shit.
it is
Yeah.
a release, right? And it is a healthy release that that you
No, you're
start
good.
at a very young age. And women were always we're not brought into this.
the
It
ma-
can be very unhealthy. It can be unhealthy
Is it
sometimes, I
healthy
think.
though? Is it healthy? It's so I looking at these chemicals, right? These are chemicals in your brain, and we keep feeding the dopaminergic urge
Right.
to
Release.
feed that animal. That's why I said, what animal are you feeding? Like, are you feeding the pleasure animal, the desire animal, right? Are you feeding? Not that we can't have desires, we can't have pleasure. It's fine. There's obviously
Mm-hmm.
a difference between connected sex and just fucking
yeah,
your partner, right? Like, I want to make sure that's clear. Like, there's also time to play, but there also is what feeds a
yeah, for
man
sure,
Well, I
is
love
the
that you're
ability
saying
to
that because I
connect
don't
with his
for
think
partner.
sure.
people I don't
It,
think
here,
women
here.
maybe believe that. And it might be because of the sexualization, right? That's been placed on us. Then we're in our
That's
heads at the same
society
time,
for
being
sure.
like, if we're
That's
not hot
100%.
enough, if we're not like a porn star in bed, we'll be
Yeah,
less
yeah.
than.
And yeah, because you guys have become subjects. You
Yeah,
become objects. You're not like it shouldn't be that way. Like there should be a time like for like both of you to come together. And it
Right.
sometimes for some couples this is like 3 or 4 times a week, right? For some couples it's the constant urge to like for that kind of connectedness may become 3 or 4 times a month. I don't know. But like let's put it this way: your dopamine, right? It's twice as much.
Absolutely.
That dopamine feed that if you feed the connectiveness animal, right? If you feed that animal that's connected, that dopamine will last 5 times longer than me
I
just
love
to
that.
that's
Yeah.
true,
blasting you
and I
for
think that's
like
the difference between
a night
that's
for
the difference
like
between
five
the
seconds, right?
multi-partner man versus
You know, like
the connected man. That's
Yeah.
because I've had friends like that. I've had friends that had like 6 or 7 girlfriends all at the same
like
time, and right, they're always on the hunt. Right,
it
right,
never ends for them. That
right.
yeah, that's why that freaking that's why
Right.
the abundance of a dating app is so fucking crazy. It's like I'm gonna
It's
keep
Right.
exactly
swiping.
the same. Yeah,
It's
that's
no
it. That's
different
it.
than you going on porn site and jerking off. It's no different. I can swipe the next one. Then
Right,
they find somebody. Oh man, she's awesome,
right.
but
But
she has
perfect
this
True.
one thing I don't like,
Right.
and it's I'm just gonna
disposable
swipe to the
nature
next one.
of
You know, like
humans, you know what I mean? And like
True.
it's
it
no different than
also
going to the
just
grocery store.
negates the amount of
Yeah,
work and
they,
communication that
we've
goes into building love. Like because a lot of society will tell us like, "Oh, you're just
yeah.
instantly in love." And I'm like,
Mm.
"No, that's not necessarily the case." Like most real good relationships that you look at have to put a decent amount of communication and work into it.
A ton of work.
And sexual energy like you can have chemistry off the bat, but like true good intimate relationships I believe really are both. Like it is physical attraction and connectedness and it's an emotional connection all at the same time. Now they don't always, like
Yeah,
everything else, it's up and
of course.
down.
I wish men knew
Yeah.
that it's the
Hell
long
yeah.
game for women, right? It's the long game, meaning like I know what it takes to get my body to a certain look, to a certain like strength, to take. I wish men knew that like your nutrition and the way you work out. You hear this work hard. Like get after it, hustle, all this
Right.
stuff. Yeah, motherfucker, that hustle takes years to achieve the actual thing you want. Your dream takes years. Listen, motherfucker. Your fucking relationship takes years, and it constantly evolves along the way. It's not just
That's
like,
right. And this is why women
I'm
fake
going to ask this
orgasms.
woman, she's
I
going
mean,
to love
it's
me for the
rude.
rest of
I
my
know
life.
it.
No,
It's
man,
dishonest
let
on
me
our
tell
part,
you.
but the truth is, like, you
No,
know
yeah,
that they're in it for the
I don't
pleasure
blame you
game,
guys.
right? So they're in it for the ejaculation game, and you don't want to be part of that. You're like, oh, and sometimes you just, if you get into your space of your relationship where you're like not able to communicate that as a woman's perspective,
But this,
that's a bad
yeah.
space to be. Like, I think women out there, if you're listening and you're faking orgasms with your partner, you really need to look yourself in the mirror and say to yourself, I am not standing up for what my needs are. I am not being honest with myself. I'm not being honest with my partner, which isn't giving him or her an opportunity.
Yeah, just for the record.
Right. Getting them, because what
Thanks
you
for the
made me think of it
insecurity.
because you said it's a long game with women. And I'm like, down to the orgasm, men. It's a long game. It's a long game.
Down to everything. Down to everything. Down to like.
You
So I
did?
wrote in college. I wrote my
Mom
thesis
says,
on
you're
on the
hired.
woman's vagina.
Like
This
2024
was
retreat,
crazy.
Michael's coming.
Yeah, dude. I
Wow,
dreamt of
tantric
making a
energy is
woman
like
come
super
with barely
interesting. And
touching her.
I mean,
That was my dream. It was like,
are you?
yeah. And my girlfriend and I are going through that whole process right now. I was no, you're good. I was doing some current research and the polyvagal theory,
Totally
and
is.
and that tantra. It's the same thing if you think about it, with the nervous, how the nervous system is connected to everything, and how to like that whole tantric massage and the vagal massage, the vagal tone is the same thing. But it all comes down to this word that I was telling you earlier. When it comes to two women and it coming to a really healthy, loving, and intimate relationship, comes the vulnerability. At the end of the day, how vulnerable can you be? The capacity to which you can be vulnerable to your partner
I was
is the
thinking, I
most is
can't help but
how
think
that's
while we're
going to
having
be
this
fulfilling
conversation
later
about
on.
You probably had a
relationships.
lot to say there, huh?
I think I read once that the divorce rate is 50%, and people say that's outrageously high. I actually think it's outrageously low.
Right.
Because, yeah, it should be.
It is low now. If you look at it, it's reversed now. It's
People have
lower
open
now.
relationships.
But I will say
Right.
why. It's because we
Right.
can't afford to live
But I
alone
mean,
anymore. So we
people,
live in these narcissistic relationships.
I mean, I was totally clueless in my 20s. There's no way I could have actually, and unless your parents teach you how to be vulnerable, which mine certainly fucking didn't. How would you enter into that relationship when you're 25, 26, or whatever it is, with someone that
Yeah.
exactly.
That's why we enter it now.
Exactly.
That's why you're in this
Well,
relationship now.
I loved
That's
in your
why I'm in a
Instagram that you
relationship in my
said
40s, right?
something
Like,
today that really stuck with me. I was like, I've
because
been following you for a bit, but it was about the healing journey never ends. And I think that's said a lot of ways, but the way that you said that it hit me today because I don't know. I think as a type A person or a person that likes to know it all, like I always feel like if I get enough under my belt of tools, then I'll be just straight at peace. But that's not really the case. Like the more I heal, the more comes up and the more that I have to work on my healing, the better I get at it. I'm more resilient.
I
I know.
I really despise the word healed.
Like,
I
what
think
the
I
fuck
have a
does
lot
that
of
mean?
people out there who like, I'm healed.
Yeah.
I'm healed. I'm like, oh yeah. What about that mom issue
Yeah.
you talked about last week? What about that
We
mom
talk
issue
about
you
that
talked
too.
about
Like
last week?
people
Does
say,
that
yeah,
seem
my
like you're healed?
therapist
I'm like,
said
no. We're
that I
in
was
a
done and
constant.
I didn't need to see anymore. And we're like, no, your therapist just fired you.
You got fired.
Right.
You weren't doing your work.
You're just not doing your work.
No,
Yeah.
we're just in a constant state of healing, and you
Right.
know what? That's okay. We don't have to be. I mean, you don't have to be healed. I mean, and what a fantastic
Right.
thing it is to always to have something to constantly work at, right? Especially for a Type A personality. Like, what's so great to have something something to continue
The
to work
more
at.
I get to
Like,
healing, the more
I
I'm
love
actually
the fact.
releasing this expectation and perfectionistic crap that I put on myself because that kept me safe as a child. But now I'm like, I never was that good at the perfectionist. I was always making mistakes and getting in trouble. And I actually had like a principal email me this week or sent me like a DM and was like, used the word defiant because I was defiant in high school. And I was thinking to myself, for the first time in my fucking life, I was proud of him telling me, and he meant it in a compliment. And I was like, that's fucking right. I have always been defiant. And it's because I don't like to be placed in systems that hold me down and categorize me as a certain place. And maybe that is us black sheeps in the world. But I don't want to be typecasted. That's right.
Yeah.
Good. Be the anarchist of your life. That's what I like to tell people. Be the fucking anarchist of your whole life. Like I want you to friggin' throw out revolutions. I want you to like.
I know.
It's not good
Wait, I wanted
inside
to
here. Let's
read
figure
this
this shit out.
passage that was
like
on your
please.
Instagram handle. So let me just say I'm saying this correctly. So Strong Surfing Yogi is Michael's Instagram handle, and I thought that this was so beautiful, and I kind of thought maybe like would be a good ending discussion point, but it's called Shadow, and I'm not sure if you wrote this. Now that you said did you write this? It's so fucking good. Oh my god, it's so fucking good.
I wrote it.
I was like, I think
That's my
she
poetry.
wrote this, and then you had a few people tagged in it,
you.
and I wasn't sure if that was the
appreciate
author.
that.
So I'm gonna read this. It's called
I
Shadow
wrote that down.
by Michael, his poetry, which is phenomenal, by the way. As I sit here clinging to the last bits of you I once held
Thank
close,
you.
I cry. I cry because there was a time those bits of me held me together. Those bits of me gave me life where I saw only death. Now I sit here in pain, clinging here to dear life because I'm scared. I'm scared I might need you again to hold me together in dark times. I know now in the dark times I am and will always be my own light. It's called Shadow, which I'm assuming you're referring to the shadow self, but it also felt very connected to grief and death to me, as though it's very relevant for us, I felt like. Also, I think for all of our listeners out there. So as you're working on your inner child, we tend to cling to identities of what we feel comfortable in, even when they're unhealthy, right? And as a widow and widower, people don't quite understand that, and you get this because you are a veteran. Loss that massive capacity, you can never go back to who you were after those trauma incidences of massive loss. And so it's so interesting to me that how the shadow work is actually death in small ways of the old self. And we have to learn to look at this, be scared and vulnerable, as you said, both men and women, and then let it go. And know that it's okay because we were always our own love and light. We're always our own parent. We were always alone, even if we lost our closest person, because we're responsible only for loving and changing ourselves. And we need to be cohabitating, obviously, or co-regulating, as we've been talking about. We need partnerships, but it's so beautiful. That struck me so hard today. I was like, I felt like your poem was literally everything I've ever worked for and all that I've realized. It was so beautiful. I really was like, I don't know who wrote this, but I'm obsessed with it. And you need to put your name under that, by the way. It's stunning. We're going to put it in the show notes.
Yeah, I'm actually completely
I wrote
inspired.
that.
Yeah, right?
It's
Michael, it's such
oh dude, thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
I mean, I'm very early in my journey for sure of being a man, if you will. And it's really inspiring to hear somebody
No, let it all out, dude, please.
As strong as you and as thoughtful and as sensitive and aware. It's fantastic. And a man no less.
Well, and very masculine, as you're talking about the alpha man, you're like, maybe that's not a bad thing, right? Like people are swinging some of these deep masculinities as into negative connotations because we're trying to untangle some of the patriarchy. But I think what we're saying here today is we don't have to lose our masculinity. We don't have to lose our strength.
He is reminding me that I am just scratching the surface of my own self.
Yeah, it's true. We all are.
Just started.
Yeah. Dude, I learned something quite a long time ago. Is like someone told me that within our lifetime we'll live 7 different lives, right? And think about that, right? You'll have a death and a rebirth every single time. Like you guys went through a death, like the death of your spouses. And moving forward, I don't want to be that version of myself. Like for me, I've done it so many times. I'm just like, I never want to look back. There's parts of that I love of my past that I love, but it comes with a bunch of turmoil that I also do not want. But I learned along the way, and I just keep shedding skin off, right? And I'm shedding it in and just turning into something. Man, it's so much more fantastic.
It's dawning on
so
me
much
that I
more
have a lot more shedding.
So much more enjoyable.
There's a lot to be shed, but I would say take your time, right? Like, and one thing I love about him is we're definitely not linear on our healing path. I've been doing, I would say, trauma work for a long time because my husband died of cancer and he got sick a long time ago, and so I started doing trauma therapy in the midst of it all. And I was thinking today is actually my first husband and I's wedding anniversary. So I woke up a little sad today, but what I've realized is, and maybe you feel the same way, because not just losing your spouse, but like grief in general, loss of previous self, the lives we've lived prior to and no longer can. What I came to today and maybe prior to this is that I am holding on to mostly love at this point. There was definitely a decent amount of anger and frustration in my loss and the journey of all the parts of me that were lost caregiving in those years and for my kids and everything that happened to us, all the transition. But if you're able to actually be vulnerable, look at it and grieve through it and surrender to it, you can carry all the love and all the good and all the lessons you've learned, and you can release the parts of yourself, the prior parts of yourself that you kind of needed to get on that journey, like that you couldn't have known before you knew, as we say. But you get to release those. You get to let go, and you get to go on to the, as you're saying, the new rebirth. So I was thinking today, like how powerful it is that I get to be in love again. I get to be a mom again. I get to be in a family again. I get to have another person to try this whole marriage thing with. And I did a pretty fucking good job on my first marriage. Actually, I gave that shit 110%. I was wiping asses in the hospital for my
Give
30-year-old
yourself that pat
husband
on the
when
back,
he
girl.
went through a massive surgery. And so, yeah, it's really cool to think about what's possible when we do this subtle, quiet work and we surround ourselves with people we feel safe enough to feel. And we allow, as women, our men to join us in this journey, and the men allow us to join us on their journey. We really can let go of a lot of shit. And it's still there, right? It still happened to us.
Yeah.
But it doesn't define us anymore.
Yeah. What I've yeah, no, it doesn't define us. And we continue to like I think Atticus wrote this is a new age poet that I'm starting to fall in love with. He wrote we fear losing those we put so much love into because they've taken pieces of us with them. And I thought that's so beautiful because it's like, man, they took some pieces away, but yet
But I'm
like
wondering if
those
they take the
pieces of
pieces
them are
of
still
us
residing within us.
that are
Right?
not fully healed. That sounds kind of bitchy. I don't know, but you're like, maybe we take the pieces that we need to
I
carry
mean, who knows?
forward.
I don't know. It's I don't like to. I like to think, like it's just they transition, and maybe some of those pieces go with the soul, and eventually one time in your life in your next lifetime you'll find
Well,
that
I
same
would
person
love
again, and you
to
guys
have
can
you
all
join us
connect.
on a retreat
Who
at
knows?
some point,
I
Michael.
don't
I
know.
would love to
I
collaborate
don't
because
know
I
shit,
think
by the way.
I would like. I'm going to put in the show notes all the retreats to find you for my men listeners
Please.
out there, which we have a lot. Like we literally had a couple that actually almost got divorced, decided to not get divorced because of listening to David talk about his feelings. And I was thinking to myself, men need retreats
Nice.
too. They need these spaces, and so maybe they don't know how to build them for themselves quite yet. And I love that you're providing that for men out there. And so Michael's all of his handles will be in our show notes, so you can find him. He is Strong Surfing Yoga. It's his Instagram handle, and I mean, man, the poetry is stunning. So I hope you'll join us again on the podcast and maybe on a retreat. We like to go to Mexico.
Thank you.
This place that I go is a major surfing
Anytime.
city, by the way. I'm not going to say it out loud because I'm actually still trying to keep it so quiet because it's this indigenous little town that we found, and it's just perfecto. So we're thinking about doing a couples retreat. So I'd love for you to join us if you want to ever participate in.
We're also my business is moving into we're going through a real huge rebranding this month, and we're launching my business. My logo icon right here. Wait, there it is. I'm wearing backwards. Sovereign Journey, yeah, and we have a lot of we're going into women's retreats, women's workshops, men's retreats, men's workshops, and also we're doing couples as well. We're going to move into that space. And the workshop support is like the beginning launch point to our retreats, was more in depth. And then we do expeditions, which is really in depth because things we like Machu Picchu, and my business partners are there right now, selling that right now, and our Utah expeditions, which is it's pretty expansive, but it's also it's doing hard things can help, one, a relationship, and two, expansive of the like you can do hard things and come out the other end and still be a glorious human. Sign David and I up. We're gonna come do a hard thing. I think that sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'm super inspired. I mean, my favorite guest so far.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's the easy one. You're amazing. Well, we
Well,
appreciate
the
you
only
so
male,
much.
so
And
I'll take that.
tell our
David.
listeners a little bit of how to find you. Yeah, I'll get your phone
But
number when we end
definitely,
the recording. But tell the
yeah,
listeners
definitely get my phone
where to
number.
find you, your new company's
Yeah.
name, and just a little bit so they can
Yeah,
reach
so
out. And we'll put it all in the show notes too.
Yeah, so www.sovereign-journey.com. I am at strong_surfing_yogi, or at sovereign-journey on IG. We're currently in the process of
Perfect.
rebuilding
I love
everything,
that.
rebranding. I'll send you guys all the information when so that all comes out.
I would love it. And
And
I want more
I gotta
poetry.
get you
I'm
guys
sorry
some
to be a little
t-shirts,
bit like on
so you
that
guys
side, but I'm like,
have
I'd like to
put-
see you be the
spread
male
the
poet.
wealth. No, I hope you.
Oh, I will. I will.
I
It was
hope
really
you
good. It changed my
literally
whole
stalk
day.
me for my
No,
poetry, please.
This has been Wake the F Up podcast, hosted by Alix and David Long. Be sure to check out other episodes where our community of experts share tools and ideas to help you wake to the life inside of you. If you enjoyed this episode of Wake the F Up, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Join the Wake community by downloading our app. Just search for The Wake Wellness in the Apple or Android App Store. And follow us on Instagram at The Wake Wellness. Thanks for listening.